Hi guys, this is Daniel. Welcome to my channel. Today I'm going to be talking to you guys about how to do an interview. I've been working as a respiratory therapist for about 5 years now, and the whole time I've been working as a respiratory therapist, a lot of people have been coming to me and asking me a lot of questions as to what should I say in my interview, what should I do during my interview. So I figured I'm going to make a video and teach you guys how to pass an interview. Now this is going to be directed mostly at medical fields, but it also applies to any other field, to be honest, because most interview questions happen to be the same. So whether you're going to be an architect or you're going to the tech industry, this is going to apply to you. So stick around, hit that like button, and subscribe to my channel. The first thing you got to know is don't be nervous about an interview. A lot of people come to an interview expecting that it's going to be the most stressful thing they've ever went through, and it's really not. If you actually come prepared, you're going to be more than ready to get that job. So one of the first things you're going to be asked in an interview is most likely going to be somewhere along the lines of, tell me about yourself. Now, this is not a question that deals with who you are as a person. It's more about who you are in your career. So if you're applying for a nursing job, let's say, and they say, tell me about yourself, the goal of your answer is to be able to tell them exactly what kind of experience you have as a nurse. And if you're just coming out of nursing school, like many of you are, you're going to want to tell your employer, well, I did my clinicals or my practicum at this location, I went to this school. So a proper way to answer that question will be something along the lines of this. I went to school for 4 years at this university. After I graduated, I did a practicum at this hospital. And after 2 months, I volunteered at this place. That's pretty much what they need to know about yourself. You could say your name. You don't necessarily have to say your name because they kind of know who you are already. This does apply for every medical job. So whether you're going to be a respiratory therapist like I am myself, or if you want to go to EVS or any other career, you're going to want to tell them exactly what kind of experience you have. Do not tell them about your favorite animals. Don't tell them where you went to church. Don't tell them how many family members you have. This is strictly about a professional setting, experience, and your kind of thing you're going to bring to them. With that being said, let's say you're in a tech industry or you're trying to be an architect. You could also do the same thing. Tell me a little bit about yourself. And you could tell them, I've been working on these kind of projects as an architect. I went to school here and I recently worked here. This again has nothing to do with who you are as a person. It's strictly to do with your professional career. So another question they're most likely going to ask you is, why do you want to work here? Now, obviously the answer is, I want to get paid. I need to get paid money. You guys offer money. This is exactly why I want to work here. What they want to see is that you're going to stay there for the long haul. Whether it's going to be 5 years or 10 years, they want to see that the investment they put into hiring you, which it is an investment. It costs somewhere from $100,000 to $1 million for some professions just to hire an employee. And what they want to do is they want to see that you're going to actually be a valuable asset and you're going to bring back a return for them. So what they want to see is that you're going to stick around. So an answer for why do you want to work here would be, I see a lot of advancement opportunities in this place. Try to focus on something that's above you in terms of, let's say you're just getting out of school and you don't have any ICU experience and you want to say, I want to advance eventually to the ICU, and they have a specialized floor which deals with cardiac patients or anything like that. Let's say you're in the tech industry and you're just starting to code and you want to advance to something that's beyond that. You want to work with a team of people. You want to work on bigger projects, and that place has that. So what you want to do is tell them this in that answer. So if they say, why do you want to work here? Include the long haul for them so that they see the value of that you can bring to that company. So another question that you might be asked is, tell me about a time you disagreed with a manager and what did you do about that? Now, this is kind of a tricky question because they want to see in the answer that you can go up the chain of command and tell them exactly how you feel when you disagree with the management. So they don't want to see that you're going to do something behind their back. They don't want to see that you're going to do something against the actual institution you work for. So in my case as a respiratory therapist, something I would say is, my manager one time told me to do something like work on a patient that I had no right to work on, and they want to see that you brought it up the chain of command. So they want to see that, why did you disagree with them? And they want to see that you'll actually be able to tell them without going behind their backs. Let's say if a supervisor came up to you and asked you to do something, whether it's shady or not shady, they want to see that you went through the proper channels and that you didn't do anything shady. So don't worry about that question. That question does tend to get people nervous because they think I can't disagree with my manager. But it's not about disagreeing with the manager. It's more along the lines of how can I properly communicate with my team? How can I properly communicate with my management? So another question you might be asking, this is one of my favorite questions, is tell me your weaknesses. Now, naturally, you want to tell the employer, I work too hard, I love too much, I'm a perfectionist, and I've had so many people tell me those things when I coach them on getting interviews. The focus of telling somebody your weakness is literally telling them your weakness. Let's say I am a nurse or a respiratory therapist and I want to get a job in an ICU. I'm interviewing for an ICU position. Now, what I want to tell the management is I have no experience in working with kids, but I'm willing to learn. My weakness is that I don't know how to do a specific thing, but I'm also quickly willing to adapt to it and to learn to it. So it's not necessarily that you yourself are weak as an individual. It has to do with your professional career. Now, that same question, let's do it to another industry. If you're going into banking, let's say you're interviewing for a banking position, they say, what are your weaknesses? You're not supposed to tell them, I can only lift so much weight or whatever it is. You want to tell them, my weakness is that I've only worked in this kind of a bank environment and I have never worked with, let's say, handing out loans or going to personal loans. I'm very comfortable with this side of the business, but now I want to work with this side of the business. So my weakness would be working only with personal loans and not with institutional loans or anything like that. Let's say if you're trying to get into an architect job, what's a weakness you might have? And you tell them the reality. Where is your weakness? If you've only worked on multifamily homes, you tell them, I've never worked on skyscrapers, I've never worked on residential homes. That's a weakness of yours. It does not deter you from getting hired. What it does actually do is it helps them see if you're the right fit for them and if where you are in your career is the best place you need to be at, and that's where most people stumble. What they do is they get caught up with the question of what is my weakness, and they think that an employee cannot have any weaknesses. And like I said, many of the people watching this video, you are gonna just probably get out of school and wonder to yourself, how am I gonna get through this interview? And if I get asked that question, what do I tell them? And again, you're out of school, so the best thing to do is you say, hey, look, my weakness is I am still green. I just got out of school. In my clinicals only worked with this type of demographic in terms of pediatric patients or NICU patients. I have not had any experience with adults or geriatric patients. So you tell them that. And honestly, no management, no person's going to be disappointed with your answer. You're just going to be real with them and you're going to tell them exactly where you are in your career. Another question that you might get asked is something to do with time management. Now, time management is one of those things where they're going to word it in a way where it tries to get you caught up. So you're going to be asked a question, something along the lines of, tell me what would you do in a situation where you have 5 patients, who would you see? Now, all they really want to see is your time management. And if you're trying to get a job in the medical field, the rule of thumb is most critical to least critical. So you organize whatever the question is given, organize it in such a way where you answer it and apply the most critical scenario that you see that first, and then you go on and on and on. They also want to be able to see that you can delegate tasks. Let's say you're in another profession, not necessarily in the medical field, and a deadline is due. They want to see the shortest deadline first. That's what you're going to prioritize. One of the last questions that you might get asked in an interview, and like I said, these aren't necessarily going to be the tools, but for the people that I've coached so far, these are questions that were asked. And if they were prepared for these questions, they aced their interviews and most of them got jobs. So one of the last questions you might get asked in an interview is, do you have any questions for me? And that's probably the best place for you to interact with the management team because you're only there for about 5 to 10 minutes. You don't always have the best time to ask them questions. This is your time to show them your interest in the actual position. So one of the good answers or one of the good questions you can ask them is, what's the room for growth in your department? Or where is the hospital or architectural firm or tech firm headed in the next 5 years? What is your institution's growth plan? That way you can actually engage and see where you can fit in to any new growth that they might be having. Another question you might ask is, show them that you've done your research into the institution. So let's say you're applying for a hospital job. ask them about the actual patient load you have. Say, this is a 500-bed hospital. How are the therapists or how are the nurses organized in terms of patient to workload? Show them that you did your research. If you're going to a bank, show them that you know how much money they made and how much money they're working with. And say, with this kind of financial department, what do you do with this or what do you do with that? Your opportunity here is to show that you've done your research and that you as a candidate can stand out. That the person before you probably didn't know what to ask. They say, no, I don't have any questions. One of the most important pieces of advice I can give you is that you might get thrown something from the left field. You might get thrown a question that you weren't prepared for. And the best way to tackle this and actually be able to stand out in an interview is to be extra prepared. Now, what does that mean to be prepared? What that means is you simply have already run through every question they might have asked you and time again done repetitive answering, and you've already played every scenario in your head. Now, some of the things you might play out in your head that will help you is constantly think about what kind of scenario could you be asked. And one of the scenarios you will be asked is, when have you disagreed with a coworker? Start thinking of scenarios in a previous job that you've disagreed with a coworker where you can actually use it as an example. Now, let's say they never ask you, then it's still good practice to kind of just refresh your memory and see what kind of worker you really are. You might get asked, when did you disagree with the upper management? When did you disagree with the doctor, if that's what you're going for? So be prepared. If you guys have any questions, I definitely would love to answer them. This is only part 1. If you guys like this, I'll have a part 2 coming out for you guys soon. I'm going to be focusing on a lot more content in the near future about getting hired when you're just out of school. I'm going to focus on getting you prepared to work in the medical field or any other profession. My focus is going to be for now medical. And if you guys have any questions about any other professions, I would love to help you guys out and answer anything. So hit that like button and subscribe to my channel. Thank you.